Aloha.
Mm.
Good to see folks.
Mm. Holiday cheer to everybody.
Take the time to look around, see who's here, if you are called to do that.
Mm. Let's see. Good to see you all. Mm.
All right, let's get to work. Just taking your time coming into a posture of greater stillness. Not that we're trying to force a stillness on the body or the mind. There's a sense of just invitation to listening, receiving the body, listening to the body, receiving the body, more than directing it, managing it. And in that shift often comes a kind of stillness, not meant to be rigid or enforced, just sensitive, in tune to all of the myriad fluctuations of experience we notice, feel in the body and throughout the body. And similarly with the mind, not trying to force it into a box of stillness, frozenness, but that there is a sense of quietude that comes with just reorienting towards a listening to the mind, the thoughts, to imaginings, receiving them, their character, their qualities, rather than always propagating them, managing them. Let the eyes come to close and acknowledge all of this incredible phenomena we don't always pay so much attention to in the body, in the mind, and all of the activity, dancing of the sense doors. It is helpful sometimes to begin with the reminder of the heart's capacity to care for whatever we are observing, receiving, experiencing. Sometimes it can be just a very simple, gentle softening of the heart, mind, as we receive experience, and tenderness, and warmth that recognizes the worthiness of every moment of experience to be cared for without preference, without attachment. All these phenomena still stream by, arising and passing. We're not trying to cling to them with our affection, but a care that recognizes the impermanence, fleetingness of all phenomena. If there are difficult or painful, unpleasant sensations in the body or in the mind, that caring can take on the flavor of compassion, caring for hardship, difficulty, pain, still buoyant, still beautiful, but the kind of internal beauty inspired by suffering, hardship, internally or externally. And if there are pleasant and joyful experiences in the body, in the mind, heart, sometimes that caring can take the flavor of appreciation, joy, whether they are directly experienced right now or the arising of an external joy, someone else's happiness, sense of sharing in the happiness of any joy or pleasant experience. These beautiful qualities of heart, not at odds with the truth of unpredictability, changeability, dissatisfaction, balanced by this quality of equanimity, the gentle power of the mind. Find stability in this fluctuation. The uncontrollability of so much. And so, with these beautiful attitudes of mind, of caring, of peace, we have a sometimes deeper capacity to observe cleanly, spaciously, tenderly the sensations of the rising and falling of the abdomen as we breathe. Or the range of physical sensations throughout the body. Or maybe the stream of sound. Always moving, always changing. We build a relationship with one sphere of natural experience, not manipulating, managing, just receiving, investigating, exploring on its own terms the body, the mind, the sense doors as they come into existence and pass away. And seeing at times that this cultivation of tenderness, of peace, can help build the strength of that connection, moment by moment, wherever the attention lands. So, we're going to take some questions today if anyone has them about their practice. I think Michelle wanted to say something
Yeah.
briefly.
Mm. Mm. I think I'm just wanting to say a few more words about this time of year. That I think we all have very different conditioning around. So kind of carrying forward a bit of what Jesse said last week. Um, but I think that where I'd like to kind of come from is just from more of that really the conditioning around December itself. So I think that if you're in the northern hemisphere, for example, where a lot of the holiday that all of us have come from in terms of our different backgrounds, the time of year, that it's just really is important to acknowledge darkness itself, that like how we relate to darkness and then how we relate to light and energy, so that kind of very, very deep, natural way in which we can see at this time of year, there's almost an opposite impulse of the Homo sapien itself. If you just think of that, it could be a time naturally of just getting so quiet and more silent, and you can look at all the ways in which the spiritual or religious dimensions are kind of trying to get us to uh, appreciate silence and appreciate quiet and appreciate slowing down and darkness. And then the values of, say, generosity, or like Jesse talking about the caring for each moment, the kind of spiritual qualities of light that essentially will lead us to more peace. So I think that if you look at the kind of natural way in which this inclination toward peace can actually come from the hardship of winter, for example, can just be interesting. Like the time I spent off the grid before the goodness of solar energy appeared, um, and just the sense of like really getting a sense of what it was like to be in darkness a lot, and what the impact of that is, and how it necessitates a kind of slowing down. Um, Again, I think that a lot of us practice this time of year in a way that we try not to get caught up in the um, frenzy of busyness. But it's also important to acknowledge that that is also an inclination, that it's a way of dealing with the uncomfortableness of the darkness and the cold of this time of year, no matter where we are. And again, I think that if you're in the southern hemisphere, one deals with this in a different in our summer. It's the same process. It's just a different time of year, but it's still No matter where we are on the planet, where a lot of us, north, south, east, west, were affected by uh, the frenzy. Mm. I fell December 3rd pretty badly, and it's so interesting to kind of be needing a walker to get around. And it's just like it really slows you down in a way that I wasn't intending by any means. And it's very painful. Um, but again, there's that level to which, just getting ready for the Sunday sitting, took an hour, like it's just like, whoa, just any little thing feels like so monumental to do. And so I'm so proud when I can get up from my bed in the middle of the night and pee. Like it's like excruciating, but it's so interesting, like when I can have the courage to really be with it. And I've gotten better enough to hobble down to the bottom of my driveway. And in my neighborhood, if people go for a walk or a run, usually other neighbors don't expect to have long conversations. It's like you're on a walk. And so people might say hi or check in a little bit. You're not like vulnerable to long conversations. And I had forgotten about like what that's like to kind of hobble down the driveway this morning. And wow, I just kept getting involved in these long conversations, which was making me worse. Like I was standing there. But it was also interesting to listen to where people are at from that kind of shared place of vulnerability. It's because I'm vulnerable. That's like something people are kind of with, whether they know it or not. And I would say the majority of what I heard this morning was just this yearning for peace, like in the world, like a yearning for peace in the world more than ever. A distress about it that is so deep, and so pure and so moving. And so appropriate to the time. Yeah, like that, like it's so, of course, that's what people are expressing and feeling and wanting, and the kind of genuine bewilderment at like why, like what is going on? Why is it so hard, And I often find it interesting that people will want me to say something in a few sentences that will make it clear why Homo sapiens are like so good at war. But I found myself today just really talking about forgiveness, just like just over and over again, just like, it's like we all hurt each other and make mistakes. And then there's the years and thousands of years or hundreds of years or, of hurting each other. And at some point, we have to stop. It's like that like what's so interesting is that like the whole Buddha's teaching really comes down to that the Buddha stopped. He just stopped. And what does it take for any of us to do that, whether in a collective sense or an individual sense of like that sense of like knowing that all the rage or anger or sadness or, fear, all of the ways that we respond to not being able to control pain and the way humans are not that controllable. I think that it's very deeply important to not not repress that not repress that feeling of wanting peace at this time of year, because I think it's so much about what it is about. And yet to get to face that discouragement or the disappointment or the hopelessness and despair around it, I think it's very important to just look at ourselves and to see how hard it is to be at peace ourselves with what's going on, and then to see how so many people don't have the resources that we do to practice to see, what's going on, and to see, I think on a deep level again, how huh, hard it is to really be mindful in any kind of continuous way over years with difficulty. So I think that I find that this definition of mindfulness that Nisargadatta offered in the book I Am that he called it the intention to understand rather than to judge. And I think that's so fundamental again to this time of 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 all the songs about peace, right? All the songs about silence and yearning for peace, and love. I'm not leaving out love, the unconditional love, so that there's that sense of like, well, where does that come from in us? And that like even wherever we are in relationship to dukkha and difficulty, that just come back again, again, and again and again to that intention to understand rather than to judge. There's a My left leg looked pretty bad. It still does, but it, like if you saw it, the purpleness of it and the swelling of it. And when I went to the orthopedist, he said, "You're so lucky." And then when I went to the PT, it's like she was like, "You're so lucky," and I was like, "Sure, sure doesn't feel lucky." It's not feeling lucky, but like, "You're so lucky, you're so lucky." But I think that again, to be a Homo sapien on this planet, on some levels, to be born human in the Buddhist sense is so lucky. Yeah, we're so lucky to be able to have this possibility of finding peace, right? Of finding love and the Brahma Viharas, of just being able to um, have the goodness of that kama or karma. And so that like that it was helpful for me to hear how lucky I am because it didn't feel lucky, right? It wasn't feeling it. It's because I didn't break anything. So anyway, I think that just that sense, I'm saying it in that way just to have that context, really, the context of this time of year, that juxtaposition of that the darkness and the understanding of how important the light is, and not just physical light but the spiritual light, right? Like you can just see it being celebrated everywhere so purely, and yet And yet at the same time, we're faced with so much of the opposite, and how paradoxical that is. But of course, whenever we hear the word paradoxical or paradox or contradiction, we can know that that means that it's an opportunity to mature the human heart. Facing it is what matures the human heart. So one of my neighbors, her husband died recently, and I swear I saw her a little while ago, and she's aged. She's aged so much in a month since I saw her. Maybe it's a little longer, but just what she's been through this year. And she told me she didn't think she had the strength to go through this year, like what happened and what happened day by day. Uh, and now she's at a place where she's looking back on it and just even though it was so hard, she's appreciating her strength. And I think that's something to be reminded of, you know, again, on this time of the planet, and what we hopefully have a little time to ponder or reflect on or be with quietly at this time. How important it is to see sometimes, well, I don't know if we have the strength to go through it, but we do, and we will, um, if we take the time for that spiritual strength. So that intention to understand rather than to judge. I think that other Suzuki Roshi, that he coined soft readiness as a description of mindfulness. And I think again, that soft readiness, that just that, it's almost like everything I heard in Jesse's instruction today came down to that kind of care and tenderness and vulnerability of just being ready for whatever will happen next, even though we have no idea what's going to happen next. Yeah, that care about impermanence, for example, that tenderness, you know, and that we wonder again about peace, but it's like without that intention to understand rather than to judge, without that soft readiness, there is no chance for peace. There's just the reactivity, there's just the conditioning um, to push away the unpleasant and hold on to the pleasant. As some of you know, I tend to love to reread Thoreau's Wildflowers, David Thoreau's Wildflowers, because um, I think he often will speak to the time of year uh, in terms of nature in a way that can be helpful. And I was reading a little bit ahead from December to January today. I tend to follow the time of year. Um, and just, I'm not going to read the early part of January, but what I found interesting, for the first time I looked at what he was writing in early January, and he was writing a very similar thing in 1853, in 1851, in 1856, in 1858. It's like the same theme around the same time, like January 6th, January 9th. And I think that that's what happens. Here we are again, right? Where it's like this, we're almost at the solstice. How did it happen again, right? It's just like, wow, here we are. So then I got to January 10th, And I thought, okay, I've read this before, but it's so beautiful. Now, 1858, the north side of Walden is a warm walk and sunny weather. If you are sick and despairing, go forth in winter and see the red alder catkins dangling at the extremities of the twigs. All the wintry air, like long, hard mulberries, promising a new spring and the fulfillment of all our hopes. We prize any tenderness, any softening in the winter, catkins, bird's nests, insect life, etc., etc. So we have this holiday, and then, the winter really sets in, and it's like, I think it's so beautiful. How many people tell you if you're feeling like not that great, to go out in the winter air, right? Go out and look for these almost dead looking catkins, right? Coming off, this is awesome, just like go forth in winter and see the red alder catkins. Most people couldn't even find the red alder catkins dangling, and he's calling it a fulfillment of all our hopes. This is the practice. Prize any tenderness. Like he's not saying prize any tenderness that's going to last all day, which is what we want, right? But to prize any tenderness in any moment, right? And to value it and to make use of it and to find peace there and love there. It's like making space for insight, making space for insight, making space for insight that usually will come from angst. Hmm. To value how much we really do want to love each other and ourselves. This is from Basho, the great haiku master from Japan. He wrote this on hearing that his friend had died. Do not think that you didn't count. Festival of Souls. Mm. Worthiness, worthiness, worthiness. This is a time of year to really appreciate our worthiness and the worthiness of all beings, to be liberated, to be peaceful, to be free. Mm. To understand the anger and the hatred, to understand it, to be interested in it in this world, and to find peace, to not stop there. Each one of us individually, we can do it. We can find that and keep finding it. That's what this time of year is about. Mm. So it's a short talk, but wanted to do something for the holiday. If you have any questions about Jesse's instructions or talk last week, or your time right now in your life.
And maybe before we just jump into just a quick announcement, because I know some people can't always stay to the end, that we won't have the Sunday sitting next Sunday, which is Christmas Eve. Um, just we'll have a break of a weekend, and then we'll get back to it the following Sunday.
That'll be New Year's Eve, right? I think.
I don't
But
know. It's a lot of math for
we'll
me.
even if not many people come, we'll have the sitting
Yeah,
that
we can do it New
day.
Year's Eve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'll say we will offer a little special present at the end of the sitting today. Whoever sticks around.
All right.
And then if you have any questions, yeah, just you can raise your hand at the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. Raise hand. We'll know you have a question. Let's see. Yeah. Or you can wave your real hand and we'll try to see it. Hi, Margot. Let's see.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. Um, my question relates, Michelle, to your incredible, I'm gonna cry. Your incredible ability as your body is falling apart to retain your sense of humor and your practice is just totally amazing to me. And my question is, what can we yogis out here in Yogi Land do to support you? We can't bring you food, most of us. So I wonder if there's something else we can do. I'm mindful that you and Jesse are not teaching, Steve is not teaching. Can we be sending you more Dana? What can we do to recognize and acknowledge the incredible role you play for all of us?
Coming to the Sunday sittings is a nice thing to do. Uh, I think Jesse and I would let you know if how, there are times when I wish more than anything I could figure out what to ask for Steve actually, but at the moment you could wish Jesse some patience with my grumpiness when because it's been really hard, but we're getting there. But I think that I think I so appreciate your question, and we'll let you know. I know you're helping Steve right now already, so yeah, I don't know, Jesse, if you have anything specific, but
I,
thank you, Margo. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I, I think we know that people want to help, and sometimes it's not totally clear what would be helpful, or but it's great to hear the spirit of that offered Margot. And I think there was because I am going to be traveling, um, or the plan was that I would travel for Christmas. There was the thought that if Michelle really couldn't get around, that I would stay home. And, but she's doing all right now.
I like cane.
enough that feels like, yeah, she's got a cool cane from Burma. Uh, but I think that in the future, I mean, there is a sort of like, a question of like, is there someone else maybe at some point who could stay or be around? Or, these are things that are complicated in terms of travel, in terms of, just kind of where the body of students actually physically reside and what people's various capacities are. But it's definitely something in the back. It's something not just in the back of it. I mean, we have conversations about it, and it seems like now isn't needed, but in the future, I think it is the sense of like what are people capable of and what are the needs we have. Is there some way that that could get communicated better, kind of on both sides, or um, is a question. I think we haven't figured out exactly like the what feels appropriate in terms of a mechanism, for that type of request, and managing it ultimately is not that. It's also work. So thanks for saying that, and I think we keep it in mind for sure. Yeah.
I guess I just would want to say that to the extent that we are a Sangha, we have a responsibility um, to you, and please do let us know how we can fulfill that. And
Thank you.
it would be a tragedy if we failed to support you when you need it. Please do let us know.
Richard?
Okay. I'm a little confused about the spiritual significance of the shortened days here, uh, because for me it is such a practical problem. I've been losing my vision all my life, and at this point I cannot operate by myself outside in the dark. So if I ever find myself after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, here on the East Coast, I have to make sure that some other human being gets me home because I can't take public transportation even. Because at some point I would have to get on a sidewalk and walk, and I can't do that. And even during the day, people just universally love bright, clear blue skies. But for me, it's too bright when the sun is out. And so I love overcast skies because I could actually see them. You know, I'm not saying that. I guess I'm saying that somehow I'm not fitting into this the standard model of light and dark.
You just have to move to Ohio. They have apparently the most clouded skies of days of the year. I mean, I think just because, and I know Michelle will have something to say, the spiritual value might not be something that we always value or appreciate. But I would say the what from even what you've said, there is a spiritual value in the acceptance of our dependence on other people's help, for example, in terms of what you just offered, right? This sense of, we're self-driven, we're self-motivated, we have a sense of, capacity, and we're identified with that. And as we get older, as we get infirm in different ways, as whatever situations we may encounter in our lives that actually show to us the fact that actually our own willpower and determination is not actually enough to get us through every human situation that we may encounter, and that actually asking for help, requiring assistance, um, is often the kind of spiritual work that is unpleasant for many people because it feels more humiliating than humbling, right? Or it goes against the person we want to be or our vision of ourselves, etc. But that actually, it's from the spiritual side of things, like there is a value in that. There is a value of being humble, right, and needing to be vulnerable, right, and asking for help, kind of as Michelle was describing of just her experience on the street. Um, it doesn't take away from the difficulty of what you're describing. In fact, it's like, that's it's very intense. It's not just a matter of preference, right? Even the clear sky thing. It's actually like a real mechanical bodily thing, right? And the darkness and the practicalities of that being like genuine hardships and genuinely dangerous. Um, it's not to take away from the seriousness of what you're presenting, but to say that like actually in the acknowledgement of that, the recognition of the limitations of our independence has a spiritual value, right? And um, if we can get there, and so uh, that would be one thing I would offer in terms of where do we find the spiritual value in the challenges of the season. Um, there's a lot of folks here with us, right? Who it's like, oh yeah, maybe at one point going and shoveling all the snow is like not a big deal, and now it's actually like cannot, right? And so, what does that require in terms of relationship, in terms of asking, in terms of whatever? These are real things, and that they may be spiritually valuable even if we don't enjoy them. Michelle, what do you think?
I'm not sure we're going to convince
Yeah.
Richard.
No, I know people with my condition who really do not even want anyone to open a door for them. They get very upset by it. They really are hyper independent. I'm more than willing to, I'm very happy to have people help me. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. If you go to an airport and a guard asks if they could walk you to your seat or something like that, and you say, no, I could do it by myself, they get upset. They think they're doing something good and they're being a Boy Scout. I don't want to take that away from them.
Well, that's part
That's
of
great.
ultimately it's that wherever we have had control and we lose that can be a spiritual strengthening to come to terms with that. That's what we're saying. Because one is having to let go of one's idea of how things should be.
Well, I thought I could force the government to drop the daylight savings time thing, the switch every year.
Well, good luck with that one. I think there's quite a controversy over that, but it still hasn't changed. I thought it might this year, but it didn't. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's not easy. My grandmother went blind at a very old age, and she just couldn't adjust. She just didn't adjust. So I'm not always saying that it's possible to make use of all the different ways that aging deteriorates our sense doors. But it gave those of us that were trying to help her the opportunity to help her as best we could, which was also good for us, So I think that there are, I don't know, it's like how karma plays out with aging is, oh boy, it's just I think of it more as a kind of learning how to rest enough to get the courage to face it, and to rest enough to get the courage to face it, and to find that balance of letting yourself not be courageous when you can't be. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do want to say something about the other side of it, which is like the teachings aren't only about just the spiritual value of suffering and going through suffering, with as much acceptance as possible. I mean, there may be something that you realize is worth changing in terms of your life, right? And so it's like not life coaching, but the sense of like moving or whatever it might be, right? Of like, actually, no, you don't need to also just be beholden to feeling like you need to learn from, but to build character from like the hardship, right? That maybe there's something you do to change it to make it less hard, and whatever myriad things are might be possible around those, or when there's not a lot of opportunity to change things, that we do have to, kind of go through that process as well. But there also can be spiritual value in like changing something in your life and adjusting and making things easier for yourself in whatever ways. But the place that's not dark and not sunny sounds like a metaphor for something very powerful. I think it's worth pursuing.
I think Jesse's saying, why don't you move to Ohio?
I'm really, Cleveland is calling. That's
I want to move to Hawaii.
it's a
Pretty
little sunny
light.
over
It's
here.
got a lot
Yeah.
of sunny sky. It's warm though. Warmer.
Mm.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I mean, this is a tangential, but to be in Ecuador for as long as I was this fall, it really is different. There's a rainy season and there's a drier season, but that sense that the days are not changing in length essentially for throughout the entire year and then throughout your entire life, it is amazing. It really is a different. I think it's impossible to calculate like the difference the impact that might have on a person and therefore a people. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I guess I feel like humor is so important. Just like, I don't know, it's like I just see in the past 2 weeks that, there's I mean, I think humor is very personal and particular. It's not a universal taste, but the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas has these great lines in his poetry. One of them that I've been saying to myself because I like like in my way, I'm making fun of his voice, but there's one where he says, "And death shall have no dominion." And so I walk around sometimes just going, "And death shall have no dominion." I mean, God, you guys should hear that poem. He's awesome. It's just like, it's great. And just, um, if I didn't do those things, there's another one where getting up is so awful. I have to say, it's really hard if I'm down in a chair or really bad in a bed, but it's so painful. And I think, and then trying to face the day, and Jesse will hear the cane because I'm upstairs right now. I'll make it loud, like I'm coming, like, and then I'll be like, who's crying now? Like I make songs up like to try to get going, like, who's crying now? And it's like nobody really wants to hear nobody really wants to hear my way of getting going and joking around. But like for me, it helps me um keep my spirits up. So I don't I don't think I feel like oh, how we navigate the karma again of getting old or like I mean it's not just old, like you can be in your 20s and be in a car accident, like it's not like, or you can have MS. My other neighbor just was telling me all about having MS. I didn't know she had it, but it's really hard. She's not old, she's like struggling every day. So it's not just old, it's like the Buddha said, having a body, it's it's may we take care of ourselves happily while living on this world, in this world. It's like, say it with a joke if you can't say it seriously. Ha 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 ha. May I take care of myself happily. Ha 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 ha. We don't always feel that way, right? But it's like, however you can, um, find a way to, again, find what they call the factors of awakening, right? The factors of awakening is really what it's about, and not to expect, like, I was trying to say with Thoreau's quote, it's like you can't expect it to be there all the time. It's much more pausing enough to make space for them to come because you're cultivating it over time. Mm. Is it somebody else have a question or did it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Victor. Hi, Victor.
Victor. Hi, Victor.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Jesse. It's been ages since I've seen you. I just wanted to say
Mm.
hi.
Hi.
Um, I'm still practicing and little bits. I can't do retreats yet. The fear has taken many forms, sort of maybe um, ensconced itself in some ways into a resistance, but often I'm drowning. Maybe it's kind of a, a crotchety resistance to giving up practice, and I'm learning to play some music too, some beautiful, simple, loving songs. But I know the instruction when you're drowning is just to change channel or get out or move. But is there anything you can say about practicing when I'm drowning before I reach for the anxiety pill? Um, and one instruction I had from my therapist, a family systems therapist, was don't get sucked into the vortex of the emotional pain, like the heart, gut. Um, I call it trauma or whatever. It's an incredible pull to just rest in the pain. Find a little piece around it that's good, and then put metta and attention there. And that's been pretty successful. It's yeah, I'm pretty successful with that. Working with that, a brand new way to work with that painful, yeah,
How
side.
would you describe a little more about like where you're finding the place when you say it's near or outside of or what's the relationship to where you're finding the metta, the place to connect to with metta and the vortex?
I might say, okay, this really hurts, but I actually had my breakfast. I'm going to get out the door and do my volunteer hours this morning. Or okay, good. You got that set up. Or I might say, man, that was a real sweet dream I woke out of last night, because my
Mm.
dreams have been very generous and very, very beautiful dreams. But then I start waking, and then I have to, oh no, all the things I haven't done, all my avoidance all my life. So yeah, that was a sweet dream, gratitude. Um, or
Yeah.
I have a sweetheart, even though there's confusion and mental degeneration and not much power behind my place in the world. I think I'll just think, well, I'm good. I have a good heart. I'm transparent and kind. Those kind of things.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. It's like I think what you're, there's a way that's like so pure what you're describing, and that it's one of these things. It's almost like the paradoxes Michelle is talking about. It's like it's so simple on one hand, right? And yet how hard it is, and how
Brutal, really hard.
yeah, I mean, how many
Angst,
years
like,
of
like
work and right,
insight coming out of angst.
yeah.
Can I
And so I think that sense of like finding the relief in that, that you're already, even if you feel like it's a new tool, right? You're already getting a sense of trusting the the goodness and the care as like a home and something real and stable and true, right? That it's not like you're tricking yourself into believing something good that is in contrary to everything you're experiencing. It's like you're finding
a
something
bit of
good
that?
in
There's
your
a little bit of
actual
that.
experience, right?
A bit
That
of
you
that.
know is true,
Yeah,
and
a little bit
finding
of
an anchor in that, right?
yeah.
And that I can just see the way in which it's like creating a counterbalance to this very powerful tendency, right, which is very common in us, is like to to just get pulled into the negative belief as like as our home, right? Because even though it's so distasteful and so destructive and so consuming, there's something that we believe. There's some trust in it as true, and as kind of fundamental who we are, that feels comfortable. And rather than trying to talk yourself out of it or wrench yourself out of it, it's this sense of like, can the heart also find comfort in other truths, right? So you're not arguing with it, but you're kind of like re-anchoring in something beautiful, right? About life, about yourself, about any dimension of it that you're already, even those three things that you described are like kind of cool. They're different dimensions of where you might find a sense of positive anchoring in your life. So I mean, I think that if that tool is working for you and you're building a strength of it, especially since it's new, I wouldn't necessarily feel like you need to add a bunch of more tools at this point. I mean, it seems like something that mm, you keep that you keep that going. Um, without trying to make it more complicated because it's working and it's doing exactly what you're hoping to do. That would be my basic kind of encouragement right now is just like, yeah, watching. It's like retraining the mind to feel a sense of security, comfort, safety, homeness in something beautiful and positive, and that understanding that can take a while. It doesn't mean that the tendency to go in the other direction is just going to go away or disappear, but that you're building that other home, um, and that at some point and at some points, trusting when that feels like more of a relief, like that it feels good and that it's not fabricated. It's also true. Um, can help us see the other place, sometimes from a distance. I know at some point we start to be able to kind of look back at that sort of other end of the spectrum and be less compelled to keep going back into that, to think that our healing is going to come from drowning in that. And I think that's often like our biggest obstacle, is this sense that, well, you're just doing this for the time being, but at some point you need to get in there and drown in order to, heal yourself. And that's just
I don't
it's
think
just not true,
I'll ever lose the wisdom from having been on the edge, but I think the idea that drowning is going to be the way to solve the trauma and open it all up is pretty eroded. It's pretty gone.
But that's huge.
That's
Really,
huge.
we've known you a long time, and that was like, um,
Like 2017, I think the fear erupted on a retreat.
yeah, you've been at this a long, long time, and like that, it's often an unexamined belief that by jumping in and, I call it holding your nose and jumping in and drowning over and over and over. It's like it's again and again and again and again and again and again until you kind of get that maybe this isn't working. It's called Die Hard, but you did it. You're doing it, right? Like it's spectacular. You're doing it. Maybe not as quickly as you would hope, but
It's an aspiration to come out of it and offer some of all the wisdom that is in there to in a real way to people. But that's almost another beat me up little voice. It's
I mean,
moving.
it's natural to want to share like your joy. It's nothing. It's not like neuroses. And yes, and that you recognize that there's something vulnerable in that, and that you want to protect yourself as well. Seems wise. And I feel like the music piece. That I don't know. That's just really great to hear, and I feel like sometimes that's a vehicle for you know
It's my meta vehicle.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's great.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks, Victor.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
See one more bill.
Hi, good evening.
Hi,
Hello, Bill.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
great to see you.
Yeah, very grateful for this group and being able to come to it when I can. Michelle, you just mentioned something about Steve. I know very small mention, but I'm wondering how he is. I don't want to open a subject that maybe shouldn't be talked about here. But yeah, it would be nice to know how he is. Is there a sort of brief you could give the group on his well-being challenges at this time?
Yeah, I think maybe the next time we meet, I could say something more because I feel like being careful with his privacy and how it is for him these days. So
Mhm. Yeah,
I could say that he had a lot of crises all fall. It's only been a couple days where I would say he was out of crises in the hospital recently, like a lot of infections, and so it's been a long haul.
thank you for sharing that, and I do really respect his
Yeah,
privacy.
and I think I can, I'm always hopeful after each crisis that that might be it.
Right. Yes. Yes. And uh, is he reading emails? Can I?
He's
Yeah.
not able to reply, and in fact, that's been happening for some years, but we didn't know that he had had a second stroke. So actually, he hasn't been able to really communicate well for a long, long time, but we didn't know why. And so I'm trying to get into a habit of every few days trying to help him just it's not help him it's to encourage him to do it, to open up an emails and read them. So I think that I would encourage you to send one. I'm kind of getting you see, it was just crisis after crisis, and we're a little bit out of that mode. I'm not sure if he'll stay in Chiang Mai. Certainly, he can't stay during the burning season, which is mid-January or end of January to March. We have to move him somewhere end of March. But if this hopeful pattern continues, I think that he'll be reading more emails, and so that it would be nice to hear from you for sure. He'd love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't he can't just don't expect an answer. So that's hard, but that would be how it is.
So would it be best to maybe just wish him well or send him words of comfort or? instead of engaging in
I think if
questions.
you told him how you are, and if you want, or just wishing whatever, he'd appreciate anything. He'd love to hear from you, actually. He loves to hear from people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Okay.
doesn't have much contact except with me, so anything is good. I'm
Okay.
boring at this point.
I
Truly. Truly.
felt that. I have my doubts. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
have,
No, he'd appreciate it. I hope I'm saying that right. I didn't expect a question about it, but yeah, like I think it would be very good for him to hear from you, actually. Yeah.
Well, I hope I didn't
No,
broach
no, it's great. I'm glad you
No, Bill,
asked.
yeah,
I'm
it's just
glad you asked.
another thing, Michelle, we can think about is just, that of course these Zooms tend to be recorded, but it's,
Oh,
at
right,
some point in the future we could just not record and you could
right.
say what you
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
comfortable, and have that be whatever. It's just to know that that's an option as well. We'll be sending out a little update in the next couple of weeks before the end of the year about kind of a range of things and about the schedule for the coming year and retreats and stuff like that, which will, start back up, after the winter. But anyway, so you can, and we'll give a little bit of update, of course, about Steve and some Darine and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you for asking, Bill, and
Yeah,
don't feel bad about it. And there's of
at
course just
all.
like the
Yeah.
carefulness about just privacy and how all this plays out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and he is a more private person than I am about saying how many things have happened. That's why I'm trying to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thanks, Bill.
Happy holidays.
You too.
Too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm.
Are you going to play your music,
Oh
Jesse?
yeah. Well, it feels a little silly now, but I will. And Victor, now I feel like maybe I can blame you for my own vulnerability. I thought I'd share this. So in the one of the main reasons I went to Bolivia was I have a music teacher there, and so there was a few weeks of taking lessons with him. He also helped find me this place to do my retreat that I sat for a month. And so anyway, I composed a little song when I was out there. And because every year he asks all his students to make a little video of the songs, I decided to put a little video together. And so there's just some pictures of my time over there and me playing my instrument, which I do not tend to share in this format. But I thought, it's Christmas and it'll be sort of fun. So if the sound should come through. If it doesn't come through, there's probably a way to let me know, and you can let me know. But here we go. It's just a little video. Let's see. Share sound optimize. Let's see. Can I make this? Sabe sata suki hontu. Sabe sata suki hontu. Sabe sata kamasaka. Sabe sata kamasaka. There you go. There's my little song. Hmm.
Jesse,
Yeah. Hi, Quinn.
thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
The music and the video is so pure and so heartwarming. Thank you.
Thanks, Quinn. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really just sort of my time in Bolivia. There's a whole bunch of other stuff there, but yeah, it was nice to be able to commemorate, some of the different parts of it. So, oh, all right, folks. Well, take good care of yourselves. Oh, Michelle, hold on, you're muted there.
See you for New Year's. Well, if we all make it to New Year's, may we all be blessed.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Mm.
Thank you. Yay.